Yo everybody, what is going on? It is Roush, and welcome to Season 3 of the Pokemon Speedruns Draft League. Wow, that was completely scripted too. I do have an apology. This is again about 9 months in the making, but I actually lost the last, I believe, 5 or 6 weeks of footage from the previous season of the PSR Draft League. So I'm just going to give a brief summary. I finished the regular season at 10-3. I lost my last 2 matches, made playoffs, got a bye in the first round, and ended up making it all the way to the finals on the back of a Raikou that never fainted. And in the finals, it was a very close match, but it was a very poorly played match between me and Ro, the guy who absolutely stomped me in week 5 in the regular season, and it came down to the last Pokemon, and lo and behold, the last man standing was I'm the Raikou. So Raikou came to like 10 matches, didn't even faint once, and of course it ended up being the runner-up MVP of the league. However, that's then, this is now. Welcome to Season 3. So, shoutouts to FFan Crazy for creating the slides, the logos. Every graphic that you see today was created by him. I did a little bit of help with some of the filler things, but for the majority, this is all him. So, huge shoutouts to FFan Crazy. This is the draft order for Season 3. We do have some new players, a couple of returning players, a couple of new teams, and in fact, I believe we also have, we have multiple rebrandings. So we have, drafting first this year was Professor Dad of the Pittsburgh Steelixes, that really slick Mega Steelix as the mascot. The Jacksonville Jumbo Clawitzer, which we have abbreviated JJC, or we also call it the Jax Jumbo Clawitzer, because that's how it fit better into formulas. And of course the mascot's Clawitzer, and that is coached by FFan Crazy, who, again, complete shoutouts here. The Blackpool Blastoise are returning with Coach DrawZX, so Mega Blastoise looks really cool. He's been involved in both the previous iterations of the league, so he's been here for all 3 seasons. We have a newcomer with the Murkrow Manor, coached by Yagamirai, and they said that this was their first draft league. So, welcome aboard, Murkrow Manor. Let's see how you do this season. I think you said you have some battling experience, so at the least, that'll be a good start. Returning from last year, it's the Jimboombin Jigglypuffs and Coach Battle Dolphin. Dolphin is an excellent battler, an amazing team builder, and perhaps the worst drafter in the history of ever. However, that's only because he was using randos. But let's see how he fares this season. At number 6 in the draft list, we have Blainster the Rogue and the 1% Rattata. Blainster admitted that this was the first time he's been in a draft league, so we'll see how he fares so far this season. Returning from Season 1, we have King K Theater and the Midwest Mawiles, formerly known as the coach of the Transatlantic Tacklers. Most of you wouldn't recognize that unless you were a part of Season 1, since we didn't actually have videos or really any organization to speak of. But anyways, welcome back, King K. We have the 8th pick was by Parahax and the New York Yanmegas. Experienced battler, but I believe this was another first-time drafter as well. The 9th pick went to the Earthquake Fish, and I guess the the Quillfish is supposed to be some sort of reference. I don't understand. Apparently it's an in-joke for a couple of the people in the league, but Earthquake Fish with the Quillfish mascot, and that's coached by Sunrakasha. That's the way I've been pronouncing it this whole time until I get a correction. That is how I'm going to pronounce it. 10th pick was the Team Razor Blades with that really slick Mega Gallade mascot, coached by I'm going to double check this again. CHG Jake. Yes, CHG Jake. And the Mega Gallade mascot, again, really cool. It's a really fun Pokemon. Let's see. Oh, this is a rebranding. The 11th pick went to Coach Gino, who you might have remembered last season. He was the... I actually can't remember who he was. But this year, he's the Realgam Tower Tyrannitars. So this interesting rebranding. But we'll see how it turns out to him. He is a well-known Colo runner. So welcome back, Gino, from last year. Another newcomer this year, Gorgon Z, and he will be the coach of Team Snips with that beautiful-looking Drapion mascot. Drapion is just a slick Pokemon. I love it. It's great. Returning from Seasons 1 and Season 2, it is Baffling Amoeba, and he is coached again of the Wolverhampton Waddlers and that adorable little Sewaddle. So, let's see how Meebs and his Mono Bug team do this season. He actually was a quarterfinalist. I had to beat him. No. Semifinalist. Sorry. He was a semifinalist. And I beat him in the semifinals. So, let's see how well he does this season. We have Coach the Idiot Ninja, otherwise known as just Ninja, and the Haze Clan with the Toxapex. Meh. I hate Toxapex, I'm not gonna lie. It's a stupid Pokemon. And I ended up with the 15th overall pick as the Huntsville Heatran once again. I rebranded after Season 1 from the Houndoom to the Heatran, and I will be the Heatran for a while to come. Heatran is just a really cool Pokemon. And another newcomer, we have Ranger Squid, and he will be coaching the New England Mudkips this season. So, with that draft order set up, let's go ahead and take a look at what I drafted with the 15th overall pick, and my selection was Zygarde 50%. I thought it was really fun that this Pokemon landed so low. As you can see, we had a Gliscor drafted before this Zygarde. We also had stuff like Zapdos, Mega Absol, Jirachi. Really, there were only 2 picks on the board that were just kind of deemed really broken, like ones that you would consider, well, 2 or 3 that were remaining that were like, oh, well, these are round 1 picks, why are they still here? So there was like Kyurem Black, there was Celesteela, and Zygarde 50%. And honestly, out of the group that was there, I kind of wanted to go with Zygarde, more or less, so that nobody else could take it. I really didn't want Gino to get it this season, because Gino with a Zygarde was absolutely threatening last year. So this Mon is typically a tank. It is a very bulky Pokemon, and it's got great setup moves, but it tends to have a weak move pool, so I was kind of iffy about picking it. But I don't know. I've never used it before, so we'll see how it turns out. And you'll notice that's a common theme here is I love picking Pokemon that I've never used before. I just love trying new things out. So for my second round pick, I went with Tangrowth as the 18th overall pick. I really wanted Tangrowth for my team, and because we were doing Snake Draft, I knew I wouldn't get another pick until, when would that be? Pick 47. So, huge gap in between picks for me. So I wanted to grab Tangrowth as early as possible because it is a regenerator Pokemon. I've never really used it before. It could be offensive, defensive. It's got really nice sweeping potential. It's got a fantastic move pool, really good defensive typing, and it's also one of the best checks to Zygarde 50%. So already off the boards, so nobody can run around with a Tangrowth against me. Really bulky. It's got fantastic defenses, and I'm really glad that it's gonna be on my team this year. And we'll see where we go with that. Good grass type. So I already have a dragon type and a grass type. So that's a couple of really good pieces to common offensive and defensive cores already in position. With that 47th overall pick, I decided to drop down to tier 3 with Sylveon. Sylveon is a very adorable Pokemon. It is a fantastic special wall that pairs really nicely with Tangrowth and Zygarde. So far, I have really good defensive coverage. Right now, I do have a little bit of an ice problem, but other than that, between these three, there's no defensive holes. They also have really nice offensive synergy with each other. I have a very good couple of special attackers. I have a couple of very solid physical attackers, with Tangrowth having base 110 and 100 respectively. Sylveon is my primary cleric, and I say primary because it's got 95 base HP, it's got 130 Spit Up, it's got 110 base special attack, it's got access to Calm Mind, it is Wish, Heal Bell, I don't think it has any other straight up recovery moves, but Moonblast, with the Pixelate ability, I could go Hyper Voice, but just on the off chance that the opponent's got Soundproof, I could switch over to Moonblast, and there's a couple of other options to be had there. So, I wanted a nice defensive Fairy type, and I was really, really glad that I was able to pick up Sylveon, especially because last year I had Florges, and Florges is considered the poor man's Sylveon, except that it has Defog. So now I get to try the other side of the spectrum and try out the quote-unquote superior Pokemon. And so far I have Fairy and Dragon, so I kind of wanted to look at Steels, and I had already had this one in mind. This is a Pokemon that I've used in the past, not necessarily in draft, but I have built a couple of Gen 6 UU teams, Gen 4 OU teams around Empoleon. So I have done Agility, Pataya Berry Gen 4, I've done Defensive Gen 4, I've done Bulky Gen 6, Defog, it's got Scald, Ice Beam, Flash Cannon. It's got two pretty interesting abilities in the form of Torrent and Defiant. So Torrent is, it's Torrent. Once you get into 30%, your water type moves get a 1.5 times boost. However, Defiant, whenever a stat gets lowered, your attack gets raised by 2 stages. Now, Empoleon has a base 86 physical attack. However, it does have moves like Aqua Jet, moves like Waterfall, Iron Head, Earthquake, along with Sword Stance, Substitute Agility. So this thing could be a very interesting Pokemon. I'd love to try a couple of fun sets with this Pokemon alongside. It's a Stealth Rocker, it's my first Rocker, it's a Defogger, it's my first Defogger. With all these different types of utility, I can't wait to spring Empoleon into action. As this was the 50th overall pick, my 4th pick. I just love the utility and surprise that I can bring with Empoleon. It's a solid bulky water, and actually a lot of bulky waters started disappearing off the board as soon as I picked Empoleon. So I was really glad that I picked it when I did, because we had Araquanid a few picks before, then Empoleon, then Primarina, then Jellicent, then Tentacruel, Alomomola. All those mons went off the board pretty much the same round, so I managed to escape with the the water type that I wanted. So now I have a water grass part of my core, and I have a very cool Fairy Dragon Steel offensive core going on as well. So it was around this point in the draft that I kind of went brain dead for a second. I was like, I don't know exactly what I want to pick. I didn't have a really good team concept in place at this point, but I just wanted something really fast. So I ended up going with Crobat as my first free pick. Tier 3 Mon, it's really interesting. It's got solid stats across the board. It could be a bulky stall breaker. It could be a fast stall breaker. It could be a nasty plot cleaner. You could even make it into a choice bandit cleaner. It's got access to Roost, Defog, Taunt, U-turn. All those moves are really cool supporter moves. And it really helps pivot around my my slower core, which right now Tangrowth is 50 base speed, Sylveon is 60, and Empoleon is 60. So they're really slow right now. So having that Crobat helps my speed tiers a little bit, along with getting some momentum for my defensive core, and a little bit of utility and team support as well. So Crobat is a really fun Mon, and I can't wait to use it. I've used it in a few different generations. I've used it in Gen 4, in Gen 5, and a little bit in Gen 6 as well. So it's a Mon that I understand how to use, kind of like Empoleon, but it just fit okay with my team and what I needed for the speed tiers. Now I haven't forgotten about my Fire Water Grass core, so I decided this would be a good time to pick up my my Fire type. So this is Incineroar. Last year, Intimidate was released as a special ability for it. Very interesting Pokemon, Fire Dark type, not exactly the greatest defensive typing, but offensive-wise, it is pretty good. It has almost the same stats as Swampert. The only difference is it has 5 more attack, so it's got 5 more attack, it's got 5 less HP, and I believe 5 less special attack as well. I could be wrong on that. But with that Intimidate ability, it becomes so much bulkier. Base 95, 90-90 defenses puts it more defensive than Arcanine. The Dark typing really only grants it a single extra weakness to fighting that it didn't have before. But it also grants it an immunity to Psychic. So this thing is like a poor man's Arcanine if Arcanine didn't get Recover in the form of Morning Sun. But this thing is also a good slow U-turner. So it's got access to U-turn, Darkest Lariat, Flare Blitz, Earthquake, Drain Punch, I believe Stone Edge as well. I'd have to double check that. So it's got pretty good coverage moves. It gets access to Nasty Plot on the special attacking side. It's got kind of a weak special move pool, but if in the right position, this thing could be a very useful wall breaker and a tank, which is what I wanted it to be, because now I have just a really nice tanky Firewater Grass core with Tangrowth, Empoleon, and Incineroar. So that'll be Incineroar joining the team this year. And it was around this point that I actually started formulating a team plan. Now there was only one team left that hadn't picked a Mega, so I pretty much knew what Mega I was going to be able to get. So I tried to build the rest of my team around that Mega. And in my mind, I wanted something... sorry, I had a checklist of things that I wanted left. I wanted a special wall breaker, a physical wall breaker. I mean like absolute wall breakers here. I wanted maybe another Stealth Rock setter or two, because I only had Empoleon to set Stealth Rocks with. So I had already started formulating exactly what I wanted my team to have. And it turns out, once I pieced everything else together, I wanted a Rapid Spinner. So I took a look at the rapid spinners that were remaining, and that is not what I was looking for. That is what I was looking for. So this is Claydol. Claydol is a rapid spinner, gets access to Stealth Rocks, it resists Edgequake, so both Earthquake and Stone Edge. It's got an okay defensive typing, a fantastic ability to go along with it. It's got a very wide move pool, so Claydol can be really useful for tanking on other hazard setters. So it's not weak to many physical attackers unless they got like really good bug coverage or something. Though it is kind of weak to special attackers, but that just fits in really well with Sylveon. So Claydol is just a really useful rapid spinner to pair with Sylveon and the wish passing abilities of the latter. So rapid spin, Stealth Rocks, coverage moves out the wazoo. Claydol is going to be a really solid backbone to the team. And yeah, I kind of already spoiled it, but next mon that I chose was my special wall breaker in Xurkitree. Xurkitree also has potential as a cleaner as well, if I give it the right moves and the right team support. So, spoiler alert, I'm going to go ahead and say it. We got to pick 2 Z Crystal users for the tournament, and I chose Zygarde 50% and the Xurkitree. That means I get Z Electric Terrain, Z Hypnosis, Nuking Thunderbolt, Nuke Thunder, Nuke Coverage Move, Hidden Power, Energy Ball, Dazzling Gleam. Just a really solid move pool on Xurkitree. So this thing is an absolute monster on the special attacking front. 173 base special attack. I wanted a nuke, and I got a nuke. So that is my my nuke, my Xurkitree. So then I had only a couple of picks left. As you see, I had 3. Now, based on what I had picked, I could pick a Tier 1 Mega, and along with a Tier 1 Mega, a Tier 2 free pick, and a Tier 5 Pokemon. And as my Tier 5 Pokemon, I went ahead and started looking at what other types of team options I could have had. So I needed a revenge killer yet, because my fastest mon was Crobat, but Crobat doesn't have a lot of power to it. And I was looking at what was left in Tier 2. And what was left in Tier 2 actually surprised me. There weren't a lot of good revenge options, but there was one really good revenge option, and I ended up with Greninja. So Greninja in draft format, especially in this tournament, we've banned Protean, we've banned Battle Bond, so you're stuck with Torrent Greninja. But Torrent Greninja is nothing to sleep on. It's got base 92 on the physical attack, 102 on the physical attack, 122 on the speed. So this thing hits really hard if you give it the right item. You can give it a choice specs, you can give it a choice scarf in case you need to revenge kill something extremely quick. Expert Belt, Life Orb, coverage moves out the wazoo. This thing is so good. It also gets access to spikes and toxic spikes, which can work really well if I decide to go with a more offensive team, or make Greninja like a Focus Sash type lead, sets spikes and switches out, which pairs really well with Claydol. Now, like I said, I was looking at Greninja a couple of rounds earlier, and that was why I wanted a rapid spinner, because I was like, well, Greninja can set spikes, and if I have spikes, I really don't want to be locked into Empoleon and Crobat Defogs to hazard clear. So I wanted that rapid spinning option, so I could at least keep my own spikes on the field. So Greninja works perfectly alongside that Claydol. So hopefully Greninja can put in some work this season. Just a really good revenge killer and nice team support option. So I was looking at my corp after this, and this was another reason why I came to choose a rapid spinner. I have a really slow offensive core, and they're all around the same speed. Tangrowth, Empoleon, and Incineroar are 50, 60, and 60 on the base. So these are mons that aren't, excuse me, fast, and neither is Xurkitree for that matter. So I looked and I was like, well, you know what? I could probably go with some sticky webs, just in case I wanted sticky webs for any given week. And the Pokemon that I came across, well, I had a little list. So I had stuff like Slurpuff, Ribombee, which, as you can see, was picked right before Greninja. Masquerain was on the list. Ariados was on the list. But at the end of the day, based on everything that was left, I chose Shuckle. So this is Shuckle this year. Wasn't my first choice to begin with, but based on what was left, it kind of fits. It's a third Stealth Rock setter, so I have that going for it. It is extremely susceptible to taunt. It does present me with a couple of extra weaknesses, but it does pair well defensively with Claydol. Sorry, not Claydol, Empoleon. Wow. In terms of defensive capabilities, Shuckle really doesn't care what hits it if it's not super effective, and the super effective moves are Rock, Steel, and Water, all three of which Empoleon resists. So Shuckle gets paired really well with Empoleon on that standpoint. It's an okay mon, but like I said, it's mainly here because it sets webs. So it'll probably be used only to set those. 2 picks left in the draft now. I have 1 pick, and then Ranger Squid had the last pick. I hadn't picked my Mega, and like I said, I needed a physical wall breaker. There are 2 really good physical wall breaker type Pokemon that have Megas. They're both psychic fighting, and I was looking at my speed tiers also, so I wanted something that was faster than base 100, and if you can guess it based on those hints, it's Mega Gallade. So I took Mega Gallade. This thing is so much fun. I've used a regular Gallade since Generation 4. I didn't really use it as much in Gen 6, so this is my first time really using a Mega Gallade. Base 165 attack, base 110 speed. This thing is fast, hits like a truck. Swords Dance, Leaf Blade, Zen Headbutt, Psycho Cut, Close Combat, Drain Punch, Shadow Sneak. The list goes on and on. This thing's physical move pool is insane. And thanks to Generation 3, it has access to Wish. So, surprise, I have a secondary Cleric. I can't remember if Gallade itself gets Heal Bell, but it does get access to Wish thanks to an obscure Gen 3 Japanese event. So, it could be any nature I want. It can be any ability that I want. If I use Wish, I'm just limited in my egg moves, so I can't do stuff like Destiny Bond, I think, was one of the options that I'm prevented from using. But this thing is so interesting to me, and I'm just really glad that I get to use it this season. So as you can see, my team, I have Zygarde 50%, Tangrowth, Sylveon, Empoleon, Claydol, Shuckle, Mega Gallade, Crobat, Incineroar, Xurkitree, and Greninja. This wouldn't have been the first team that I would have designed upon beginning my draft, but now that it's over with, this is going to be a pretty interesting season in my opinion. So let's go ahead. I want to go through my nicknames now. So my team nicknames, I decided to go this year off the theme of Spaceballs. So this is going to kind of be out of order. I'm just going to go in reverse and read through my nicknames. So Mega Gallade is ridiculous speed. So if you understand what scene that comes from, you can probably guess a nickname of another Pokemon of mine. So ridiculous speed, the Gallade. I have Shuckle. Also from that very same scene, I'm calling it buckle this, in response to Rick Moranis' character basically screaming out, buckle this, in the middle. So there's ridiculous speed. We have buckle this. We have this is my ludicrous speed, Greninja. It is super fast. It is a ninja. It's just really fun. So uh, let's see, your ludicrous speed. Then we have light speed. So we have light speed, ridiculous speed, and ludicrous speed. Loading out the trifecta. And it also works because Zerkatry is a literal lamppost, so it is actually light. Claydol we have now, so we're at now, sir. Everything that happens now is happening now. Let's see. Oh, Incineroar, Lone Star. He just looks like a slick cowboy type, just a rugged, um, just a rugged cowboy. So you're Lone Star. We have then Crobat. When will then be now? Soon. So we have now as the Claydol, then as the Crobat. That's more or less a reference to the generational gap. So we have Gen 1 was then, Gen 3 is now. So you can assume something from the future is going to be soon. This is not that. This is merchandising, merchandising. When a real money from the movie is made. The Empoleon, I just thought it was a funny nickname, so I went and rolled with it. Of course, you can't have Spaceballs without De Schwartz, and I chose De Schwartz as my Sylveon, just because it was a lot. It was pretty funny at the time when I was coming up with nicknames. I just was like, "You're the Schwartz," so my fairy type is the Schwartz. We have Yogurt, the Tangrowth, just because, I suppose. And of course, that leaves soon as the Zygarde 50%. So we have when will then be now? Soon. We have Light Speed, Ridiculous Speed, and Ludicrous Speed, Lone Star, Merchandising, the Schwartz, Yogurt, and Lone Star, rounding out my team. This is going to be an absolutely fantastic season. I can't wait to see how we do. And I will see you guys with the team builder for week 1. Peace.